Welcome to Zoo Nation, where we talk about history as it unfolds and discuss the political zoo of a nation that we're living in. My name is Josh.
I'm Nathan.
We're here to talk to you about the Hunter Biden plea deal. We're here to talk to you about the Trump indictment and some updates on Russia versus Ukraine. And of course, guys, whenever we talk about Trump, the Trump indictment, the legal battles that Trump is having, one thing that you're going to be hearing consistently on Zoo Nation, although it won't be every episode, is a review of our thoughts on the Republican primary and what will happen for 2024. Not just the Republican primary, although we will definitely go there, but also how the Republican nominee is going to fare against whoever the Democrats put up. We'll talk about also Democrats' ideas and prospects and who they could possibly have. We want to talk about 2024 because as every day goes by, we get closer to 2024. But big news, this is through ABC. There's a court case set for a plea hearing in Hunter Biden criminal case. And when it comes to some details, a federal judge on Wednesday scheduled a hearing on Hunter Biden's agreement to admit to tax-related charges on July the 26th. Biden, the son of President Joe Biden, is expected to plead guilty in a Delaware court to 2 federal misdemeanor counts for failing to pay his taxes. He's also facing a separate felony gun possession charge that is likely to be dismissed if he meets certain conditions. The case will be heard by U.S. District Court Judge Mary Ellen Noreika, a Trump appointee who had the support of Delaware's 2 Democratic senators and was confirmed by a voice vote in 2018. 2 sources familiar with the agreement have told NBC News the plea agreement includes a provision in which the U.S. attorney has agreed to recommend probation for Biden for his tax violations. So I think that you and I are on the same page on this. I see this going nowhere. Like, if anything, he gets a really mild slap on the wrist, like, oh, you shouldn't have done that, don't do that again, and then that's the end of it. No one's going to go to jail. He probably won't even get a fine.
Yeah.
You know, I would be shocked if he's even has to pay a nickel.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and the reason for this, guys, is think about the legal system. Yeah, we've had some good things come through with Kyle Rittenhouse, for an example. That was a pleasant surprise. I really thought that he was sunk. And he was cleared. He was cleared as not being guilty. And so that was a pleasant surprise. But then you've got this Daniel Penny guy who, although we can't go into intent what he intended to do, did not commit first-degree murder and is now getting a raw deal from the law. So you've got that going on. And then you've got Derek Chauvin, who's in jail, which there was some things going on there where he definitely was not guilty of first-degree murder, but he was slapped still. He's now in solitary confinement, which no matter what you think of what he did, that's a really harsh and severe punishment. But there's 2 systems of law in this country.
Do we know why he's in solitary confinement?
Derek Chauvin?
Yeah.
The cop that knelt on George Floyd's neck.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah,
but is he in solitary confinement because of protection, or is it because that's what the court
I have not heard anyone say, well, because of what the court ordered.
Oh, okay.
I've not heard anyone say it's to protect him. I don't think they care about his life.
I understand that. But I think you can technically, be put into solitary confinement, as far as for a protection thing.
Sure.
You get what I'm saying?
Because, right, I do, but I don't think that they care.
Well, yeah, I also understand.
I think if he got Epstein, no one on the left would shed a tear. So
I don't know if that's gonna happen. It's not that big of a
no. I feel like it would have already happened if it was going to happen. But,
plus, he doesn't have he doesn't have connections to other things. So,
but
I get what you're saying.
Hated as the cop that killed George Floyd,
even
though George Floyd died of a drug overdose. So anyway, that said about this court case having to do with Hunter Biden, it's just really, really an example of, number one, how come this is being talked about now? How come this was not talked about earlier? And why is it being talked about in the terms of, he's probably not going to get charged for illegal possession of a weapon or whatever the situation is. There's been some people talking about him and apparently he knocked up some stripper and she had a child.
Oh, yeah.
And there's been some talk about that on the fringes. There's not really.
Hasn't he also missed child support payments for it too?
Yeah, there's that too. And so that said, there's not a whole lot of consequences going on there. So why would there be consequences for tax evasion allegedly and or a gun possession? I don't see it happening. I would be shocked if the DOJ did anything which it should be. I mean, think about it. If Don Jr. or Jared Kushner, who's married to Ivanka Trump, or Eric Trump did something to this magnitude, avoid paying taxes, or had knocked up a hooker and that had a baby and was refusing to pay child support, just imagine how we would never hear the end of it on the media all day long. I mean, every time his face came up anywhere, it'd be like, this is the man who refuses to provide for his kids. Which, if you refuse to pay child support, you deserve to be labeled that way. I mean, you should be responsible and provide for your kids. And you should do it as the husband of the woman that you got pregnant. But if you're not going to do that, you should pay the state, who should theoretically pay the woman. You know, that's the mindset. So I see nothing going on here. I think this is a complete nothing burger because of the injustice in this country. And, I mean, do you have any predictions to make? I think, if anything, he gets a slap on the wrist, just, you've committed a crime.
Yeah.
There's no fine or consequences.
I agree with you. There's nothing that's going to come of this. I mean, unless the media decides, hey, we're going to cover this, which, I mean, I'm not going to give the media props because this has been a whole thing of like, oh, let's not cover these things, because, at the time it was the election, et cetera, and they knew that when they covered Hillary's thing, that really messed up Hillary back in 2016, so they knew it would have really screwed over Biden back in the 2020 election if they would have covered a lot of this stuff, and that Republicans were saying, hey, have you looked into Hunter Biden at all, et cetera, which the media never did, of course.
No, in fact, Twitter banned the story of the laptop.
Exactly. So now it's like, hey, we don't care, because I don't know if they, I think they're trying to find a way to subtly get Biden out to an extent. So it's like, hey, yeah, release some of this stuff. You can kind of have some of this information, et cetera, et cetera. If it subtly kicks our guy out or injures his polls, that's fine. That we'll just find somebody to kind of, push in there like a Newsom. I'm just throwing in random names or whatever. Like, hey, yeah, that's a perfect poll for Newsom to hop in there now or whatever, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I mean, nothing's gonna happen to it though. I mean, nothing ever happens to the Democrats. I mean, or politicians for the most part. We
didn't talk about the situation. We didn't talk about this in the prep, but I did send you clips of Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz confronting. I want to say the guy's name it's either Abate or Abate. I want to say it's Abate. I think the guy's Italian, and he's not the director. He's the assistant director or deputy director, of the FBI.
Yeah,
and he was called before the Senate. And you can find these videos there through Forbes and C-SPAN of just grilling him. And Josh Hawley asked him, because allegedly what happened was there was a report that came out that was denied by the FBI and said, we don't know what you're talking about this investigation. Not an investigation, but some information about the Biden family.
Yeah.
And then Chuck Grassley came out and said, I've read a document about the Bidens, or at least about Russia. Like, it's a lot of stuff not from the Durham report, but connected to it. And I have concerns. About the current administration. He couldn't say anything else because in order to read the document, he had to say, I will not talk about it. So then Hawley put Abate on the stand and said, let's get the record straight. The FBI denied that this existed. Then when Chuck Grassley said, I've read it, then they said, oh, well, it does exist. And here's the issue. The claim is, and this take it for what you will, is that there are 17 recordings, 15 of which are of Hunter Biden and 2 of which are of Joe Biden while Joe was vice president.
Yeah.
And the allegation is that Biden took a $5 million, whatever you want to call it, payback or kickback, I should say, or bribe is what a lot of people are throwing around the term as, from China, from the CCP, from communist China, while he was vice president.
Yeah.
And this is serious. And look, I mean, if this is just nonsense, okay, but I have my doubts. Like, to me, where there's smoke, there's going to be some fire. And especially the fact that the FBI, because then Cruz had him on the stand and said, are you in any way investigating the Bidens right now? I mean, he not to say, oh, we've just concluded they're guilty. Just, how are you investigating them? And Abate just said, Senator, I'm not going to talk about that with you. Just not going to do it. He wouldn't even say, the typical can neither confirm nor deny.
Yeah.
He wouldn't even do that. He just said, I'm not going to get into this with you. And he wouldn't get into it with Josh Hawley either. So there's a lot of stuff going on with the Biden administration, guys. And you can find this footage of the Senate grilling them. And Ted Cruz makes a really good point that it's shredding the FBI's credibility. It's like, at least answer the question and say yes or no. We are investigating. We aren't investigating. You don't have to say what conclusion you're coming to. I mean, if you need to hide that for now because you don't want people jumping to conclusions, that's, I think a lot of this information should be public, but I understand if you've got a current investigation why you wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah. No,
but there's just complete silence, and not even silence like no or we're not going to talk about that. Just refusal to discuss it. Yeah. And so that's what we've got, and it begs serious questions. I mean, people have known for a while, there's been a lot of jokes about Biden's connections to China, and it's really sounded like there's some credibility there, especially if there's recordings of Biden talking about it. Now, what does he say, and what does his son say? His son actually has more connections to Burisma, which is a Ukrainian company, and that's one thing that people forget. We're going to talk about Ukraine later. People forget that, but the other thing was then shortly after this happens, and I talked about this on my show, but I want to cover it here as well. Someone claiming to have known this guy. There is a guy that claimed to have been the whistleblower at Burisma who actually leaked these audio recordings, 15 and 2. He died. He was found dead. And there's not much information on where he was. I don't know if he was in the U.S. or if he was in Ukraine. Because if he was in a Ukrainian company, he may have still been living in Ukraine. But he was found dead. And I'm sorry I'm not going to be able to pronounce the name, so I'm not even going to try.
Yeah.
But he died, and it was a guy. And the thing is, I can only find this on like a couple of sites. A lot of sites are just refusing to report it at all. Which makes me, so there's a couple of things. Either A, that's not credible. You can make that argument. Or B, that is true, but Fox and CNN and MSNBC just refuse to say anything about it, which I find equally likely. Because even if it, didn't happen, that's one thing. But if it did happen, would the media talk about, hey, this guy that leaked this audio is dead? I don't think so. What would their incentive be for that? They want to cover this up for the president,
Oh, yeah.
Fox does not want to rock the boat, and CNN and MSNBC are actively in bed with Biden. I mean, it's really bad. So that's a situation that's very concerning. And the question is, there's a really good recording I saw of one podcaster talking, where are the Republicans? And we saw a glimpse, as I just mentioned, of 2 of them in the Senate, but where are the rest of them? That's the question. I mean, they went into the House first, then the Senate. And how come it's only now that people in the Senate are grilling them? They're not getting results, by the way. They're getting stonewalled. They're being told, oh, we can't go into that with you. So when will the Republicans actually say, look, legally, this is not classified, so you have, because it's not. There's a document, not the recordings. The recordings are classified, apparently, but the document entailing or writing about some of this is not classified, but it's also not being released. So the question is, when are the Republicans going to say, okay, legally you cannot keep this back, so you are either going to release this or you're going to get impeached? That becomes the question.
Never.
And that's the thing. I mean, I feel like maybe 2 Republicans in the Senate would do that, and the House is controlled by Republicans, and I don't think any of them would do that either. Timmons definitely won't. No. Lindsey Graham in the Senate definitely won't. Yeah, exactly. That's a correct reaction. Kevin McCarthy won't. Kevin McCarthy is the Speaker of the House. There's no way he takes the reins here and leads. There's just no way.
Kevin McCarthy needs to actually be not be Speaker of the House anymore. Based off of the Republicans came out and said, hey, if he doesn't do what he says he's going to do, et cetera, then we're going to vote him. We're gonna get him out. Because we have replacements for him.
Are you alleging that Republicans didn't keep their word?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm alleging.
How dare
because
you.
they do it all the time.
Yeah.
That's exactly what
Color
I'm
me surprised.
Yeah, right?
What a shock.
It's like,
Must be a day ending in Y.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. But, no, it's like he should already be out based off of the whole tax ceiling or debt ceiling.
Right,
yeah,
the omnibus spending bill and the tax ceiling are being raised.
Exactly. It's like we didn't agree to.
He held out longer than I thought. I thought on the first vote.
Okay, but holding out is not doing.
I agree with you. I'm just saying. I thought the first vote he was going to say, "Well, guys, we have to go along."
Yeah.
Which low bar. I'm just saying low bar. And he still didn't meet my bar. I'm agreeing.
Oh
with
yeah,
you.
no. Well, he didn't meet anybody's bar. That's any Republican
Any
Republicans bar.
Yeah.
I mean, except for the ones in the actual like House and Senate. Like, of course they meet that bar.
Well, because again, and like you just said, of course he has, because they're not voting to get him out. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Okay, you're done.
Exactly.
There's no discussions of that.
And the thing is it's not gonna. This stuff isn't gonna like affect anybody until like 2025, and like around the time the next president gets in is when things will really start to hit of that deal. Like, I've been looking into it a little bit. So like nothing's really gonna be done in like 2024 and all that, et cetera, but like 2025 and like around that area when the new president or current president is getting in, that's when everything's gonna like really take off and end up into a disaster and everything. Like, and the Democrats, if a Republican does get in, can use that and be like, hey, look, et cetera, et cetera. Right. It's just another collapse. It's another system.
Which, I mean, some of the Republicans did vote for it, but y'all voted for it. So y'all led the way. The Democrats led the way.
But they're
going to try and wash their hands of it and say, well, Republicans
and they're just going to try blaming it on the sitting president.
Exactly.
So it's like, oh, look, it's an issue. No, it's an issue that, like, it's another
2023.
It's another systematic crash that we caused. Not we Republicans, but like just people, like politicians caused.
Government intervention.
Like, because if there are no problems, then there's no need for politicians.
Yes.
So, and I mean, not trying to get philosophical with it or anything, but I mean, it's true. If there's no problems, there's no issue to there's no reason for the most part for politicians. So I mean, why not cave on certain issues and everything like that as a Republican? I mean, that's the way. I wouldn't be shocked if some Republicans actually worked that way. Mm-hmm. Just because, if these issues don't go wrong, then they're not going to need us.
Well, and back to Hunter Biden, it's like, so number one, regarding Joe Biden, I kind of talk about that. You need to start actually investigating Joe Biden or release a document that's talking about this. And secondly, and Cruz asked, are you investigating Hunter Biden? No answer on that one either. And then the question is, okay, I think that the answer, and this is speculation, but I think it's strong speculation. Think about it. The FBI is completely caught, because if they are investigating Joe Biden and they say that, then the Democrats are going to get really mad, at least some of them. Now, to your point, maybe some of them are secretly hoping that some of this bites Joe in the butt and then they can wipe their hands and say, we're done with you. I don't know.
I don't think this is it, but if you can slowly pick at it.
Right, exactly. It can lead up to something, like you just said, exactly. Mm-hmm. So maybe there's some of that, but some Democrats, and I joke around all the time about his supporters are like the wine moms. They're these older women that drink wine every evening and they watch Colbert. Yeah. I mean, other than that, who supports this guy? I mean, some older men, I'm sure, do too, and some young people do. A lot of
Democrats don't even support the guy.
Yeah, right. That's my point. and because a lot of the young people, there's some young people that are okay with him and that would vote for him, but it's mainly in the general.
Yeah.
In the primary, they want someone else, but the problem is who's running against him except Kennedy and Marianne Williamson. There's hardly any choices, at least yet. A lot of Democrats are saying, no, fall in line, don't challenge him, support his reelection.
And RFK, is like, honestly, as far as Democrats go, he's probably the best Democrat to run against him.
He is.
That's hard to say because I still wouldn't vote for him.
Right.
But again,
I'm with you.
At least he's I guess an old time Democrat.
In most ways, yeah. But so that said, I mean, so they're caught. They can't sit because if they say that they are, that looks bad.
Yeah.
But if they say no, we're not, that also looks bad.
Yeah.
It's completely polarized. It's like half the country and then the other half the country. So they kind of feel like they have to say, we can't answer that, but they do need to answer that. They need to say binary, either you are opening an investigation or you aren't, and I think the American people deserve to know, especially the sitting president, are you investigating this or are you not? Now, what they did, and I revisited some of the Comey stuff back in 2016, what they did in 2016 when Trump had just won and then into 2017, 2018, 2019, is they did not investigate Trump in name. They investigated Russia's meddling of the election. That was what they said they were doing. And as a result, they got the warrants, they got the legal authority to investigate Trump.
Right.
They did that, but they did not want to openly say we're investigating Trump. They wanted to say we're investigating Russian collusion. And then it became the whole, Trump did collude with Russia, until Mueller's report came out and that was a complete nothing burger.
Right.
So that said, The FBI does not feel like they can answer either way, but they have to. I mean, you and I, as constituents, we're not his constituents. We wouldn't vote for the guy, but Democrats and Republicans deserve to know: is this guy being investigated by the FBI or not? It's as simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
Because if he is, that can affect how people vote. It will affect how people vote. If he is not, then there's still going to be polarization because people are going to say correctly, oh, the FBI is too political. They refuse to investigate this guy. But at least the people will know that they're not. And so there's a possibility that I would lean, if I had to guess, this is speculation. I would guess that they're not investigating him, but they're afraid to say that because then the Republicans are going to hop on that even more than they already are. They already are hopping on it, but I feel like that there's more credibility to the politicization. Because what's the big talk right now? To your point about Trump and the prep. Yeah. Trump's talking about, oh, this is all political, about me being persecuted. That throws gas on that fire.
Oh, yeah.
If this guy's being prosecuted, but this guy's not. And he's doing, in some cases with classified documents, the same behavior, but then other things as well, like a $5 million fine allegedly from China. So, and look, in the case of both men, they deserve their day in court. Prove it. But if this is these are recordings that show that he did, American people deserve to know that, especially leading the election. Look at what happened back to the Hunter Biden laptop. The number of people that have said, if I had known that wasn't misinformation, that probably would have changed how I voted.
Yeah.
Think about that in terms of if you knew that Biden took a $5 million bribe, would you vote for him or not? That will affect how people vote. And if it's being quashed and hidden and told, and people are being told that's fake news, then it's going to affect how people vote. And by that same stretch, if it's confirmed and it's true, then a lot of people, that the last people that are not completely out of their minds will vote for Marianne Williamson or Kennedy. They will not vote for Biden. There's some people that are going to say, oh, we don't care that it's been confirmed. That's, we can't deal with the Republicans. We have to go with Biden. So, then you get into the irrationality of being on the left, unfortunately. But to go into the Trump indictment, any thoughts that you want to kick us off with regarding, he was indicted, first of all, for what was called hush money to Stormy Daniels.
Yep.
Now he's being indicted because of what he was rated on in August for. He was rated in August for having documents, yes. Mm-hmm. And now he's actually been indicted for it and arraigned. Right. So what do you think happened, and what do you think of what's gone on so far?
Eventually he's going to be indicted for J6. I just see that coming.
Sure.
400 years. That's ridiculous. 400 years in prison. I mean, like...
by the way, for our audience, he's referencing the total amount of charges.
Yeah.
If convicted on all of them, he would be facing 400 years in jail.
Which is ridiculous. Like, nobody lives that long anymore. That was only biblical times, like Old Testament times.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. Just the whole thing clearly is a political thing. Is a political push. We've never had a president go after another, previous sitting president and everything. So that's kind of scary within itself, of like having a president, a current sitting president, go after an opponent. Yes. I mean, yeah, that's really all I have to say, is like it's actually scary to see this would be scary if it was Trump going after somebody else. I mean, this would be scary vice versa.
If he went against Biden, if he went against Buttigieg or Bernie Sanders or something like that.
Right. Exactly. No, unless
or if Obama, and this is what actually ended up happening, if Obama opened up an investigation against Trump, and again it was the people that were still in when Obama was president. Yeah. That FBI, like I just said. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't technically Obama, but Obama let it happen. And that's where we kind of go into, okay, what's the connection? Like, for example, and this is one thing. Back to the primary. Vivek Ramaswamy went on CNN and asked, did Joe Biden call Merrick Garland? And he kept asking that. Did Joe Biden call him? Because if so, we've got a president opening an investigation on a former president who is currently the front runner on the opposition party.
Exactly. And that's the problem.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, and that's the problem. I mean, that's because at that point you're not living in a democracy, a republic. You're not living in any of the above. You're living in a communist state or a developing, steadily developing communist state. To shut down your political opponent, and through the powers that are given to you, et cetera, et cetera, and go from there. And who's going to stop you? Nobody. It's a scary situation there. Now, what happens of it, I don't know. There is potential just because of with this stuff going through. Yeah, does he get thrown in jail? Yeah. Technically considering, does it stop him from running for president? No. However, if he does get thrown in jail, I'm sorry, but I don't think it's the best idea to vote that guy into. I don't think it's the best idea to continue to vote for Trump at that point. The reason is because there's no way that the Democrats will allow him to take office, even if he did win the vote. I just don't. If he does end up getting put in jail, or this process continues to go further and further and further, I don't think there's any way that the Democrats would allow it for him to come out of jail and run a country, et cetera, whatever. So I do think on the Republican side, you need to be considering this stuff of okay, who's our next guy, and in this case DeSantis. So what does DeSantis need to do, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're DeSantis, you need to be prepped for, hey, if stuff hits the fan, what's my move as far as what am I gonna do, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, I don't know. I think he's kind of given himself up a little bit too much, originally with the whole going to New York, with the first indictment and everything like that. And it kind of opened him up to a little bit of vulnerability there. And yeah, I don't know how far this does go, but I don't know. It's definitely not good for the Republican Party, for one, and it's not good for the country, especially on this indictment, because this is a specific indictment of another party going, the sitting president going after another opponent. Just going after a political opponent. We've never seen that before. And that's an issue within itself, and that is actually scary, because it's okay, so if you will go after a political opponent, who won't you go after? So yeah, I don't know.
We'll come back to this in a sec, but this is still related. One thing that I did see was Karine Jean-Pierre, who's the world's best press secretary. Not at all the laughingstock of the country.
I'm going to circle back.
Yeah, well, she is, I think, probably circle back. Psaki was so bad. Maybe Pierre is just better by one drop of blood.
How though? She doesn't even know what she's talking about.
I know, but circle back Psaki was so obnoxious.
But she lied to the point of
they
she
both
knows.
Lied.
No. I know they both lied. No, but at least Psaki knew what was going on. Krian, however you say it, KJP, doesn't even know the. Have you seen her flip through notes of I don't see this in my notes, etc. At least Psaki had I guess professionalism to her. She could at least avoid the point of we'll circle back to it. I know what you're talking about, but we'll circle back to it. KJP's I don't even know what you're talking about.
I guess on the one hand, this is what I would say. There you've got Psaki competently lying, and then you've got KGP incompetently lying.
Yeah, I'd at least rather have the competent liar that knows what the heck is going on.
I prefer the incompetent liar.
Really?
Because
the incompetent liar makes you look stupid.
Right.
They both make you look stupid, don't get me wrong.
My point is, that's a good thing.
Is it though?
Yes.
How so?
Because it makes the Democrat Party look bad.
Okay, yes, that's a good thing. Okay, but I'm talking about this from a standpoint of if you're a Democrat, this does not make you look good. Okay. Well, KJP, not KGP. Psaki made you look at least a little better.
I get that.
Yeah, doesn't make you look dumb. It just makes you look typical politician. Avoid the question. I don't know.
Again, you're arguing on that side. I see that. But back to
devil's advocate.
Yeah, exactly. Back to she was asked basically what I just said. Did Joe Biden speak to Merrick Garland, and did Merrick Garland speak to the head of the DOJ about this? And she tried to basically say the claim that Biden is out to get Trump is insane. The DOJ opened this investigation on their own. And it's like, okay, that's just, how does that work? Because if you've got the head of the DOJ who's a Biden appointee and he's doing this, I mean, you cannot tell me that there's no coordination here.
Oh, yeah.
Just anyone with common sense would say, of course there's coordination here.
Yeah.
With what Biden is saying to do and what the DOJ is doing. Of course there is. So that's it. Back to what you were saying. We can discuss this for a while for our listening audience because I don't agree. Back to what you were saying about the Trump nomination. Well, what do you think my position is? And also, we can kind of flesh out your position more. So you said, if I understand correctly, let's restate it. You said that. So before we even go there, actually, what do you think the percentage-wise, 100%, 0%, of Trump getting put into jail?
At this point, it's like 50-50.
I am.
Yeah, I'm at a 50-50.
That's where I am. I mean, I say that. Then there's times I think it's 60% he won't, 40% he will, because that would take a lot of guts to do on their part. I just don't know.
But the question is, how much do they hate their political adversary?
Right, and then I think, well, there's actually a chance.
Exactly.
It's a flip of a coin.
It always goes back and forth like that.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a 50-50.
So that said, and I'm with you.
Yeah.
Overall, I'm with you. Like I said, it changes a little bit, but I'm still with you. That said, and let me restate it. So your opinion, if I understand correctly, is he gets indicted, he actually gets put into jail.
Yes.
That common sense conservatives across the country should say, well, that's a non-starter. We can't vote for a guy in jail, and they should then go to the next guy.
Not that, okay, like, it's not necessarily it's not that we can't, because clearly you can. There's nothing,
I understand that. Yeah. I'm not arguing that.
It's a matter of, like, smart vote here, right? Because I don't think, like, politics to an extent, if correct politics is a game of chess, right?
Should be.
Yeah, should be, theoretically. So if done right, you got to also think of, all right, what's the Democrats' next move? All right, they got Trump thrown in jail, right? And if he does win the vote, he's already in jail. It's not going to be hard to come up with some reason on why he can't become the president, even if he does quote unquote win the election, et cetera, et cetera. Now, again, we don't know what's going to happen, but this is just theoretical anyway. So my thing is like, yeah, I do personally say, voting for a president, because I'm not underestimating the enemy here. This might also be giving the Democrats a little too much credit, but, hey, if they do get him thrown in jail, and he ends up winning the vote and everything, I don't see them allowing him to become president by some hidden law that, who knows, whatever. So the thing is, it's like, okay, fine, let's all jump on at least, I'll just throw a name in there, DeSantis. Let's all hop on the DeSantis train, get him voted in, and there's no baggage there, and have them do the same thing with Trump that they did. Have them do the same thing with DeSantis that they did to Trump, as far as like, oh, Russiagate, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And find nothing, as usual. But I don't know, from a lose one war or lose one battle to win the war type thing. I'm not saying that it's right on Trump's end of things. Like, again, if he gets thrown in jail, it's not right. That's not at all what I'm saying. But at the same point, do you really trust it to put your vote towards a guy that gets thrown in jail legally or illegally, whatever, to actually end up counting in the long run to be the next president of the United States? That's the real question that I kind of have. I'm not saying that, like, I disagree with I'm not saying you shouldn't or can't, or morally, whatever. Like, no,
I get that.
I'm just
saying.
saying.
I didn't think that's what you were saying.
Yeah,
I thought you were trying to say in terms of, I wanted you to make your argument for why you wouldn't do that.
Just strategically, I don't think that it's a good move, like, voting wise, like that, because it also comes down to, like, now you're voting for the guy that got thrown in jail, and it's like, you're voting for him and everything, and your vote kind of counts, but now it's just a vote for the Democrats because they're just going to be like, oh, yeah, he won and everything, but we can't let him in because this article says this or whatever,
So let's go there. But first,
Yeah.
What do you think happens? Do you think that they will block him from office? And like for example, maybe this is kind of what you're trying to get at.
Yeah.
I think it was shortly after he left office, some Democrats in the Senate and House wanted to make a law pass.
Yeah.
That a president that has been impeached cannot run for president
Yeah.
again. And of course, it would only affect Trump. I mean,
Right, of course.
Who else is that going to
Yeah,
affect?
exactly. Who else?
You know, so do you think so when you say they're going to try to like use a law or something,
Yeah.
you mean
They'll either
that?
make one. If they get him thrown in jail, there's no question that somehow there's going to be some, and I think even some Republicans would end up voting for that too.
Sure.
So I don't
you
necessarily
think-
see that not being a vote.
You think that? Do you think? And I'm fine with us saying this. Are you also saying that 2024 might get 2020'd?
Yeah, to an extent, except for it would. Yeah, I mean, except for
You're saying that too. You're not.
they'd
saying
be like,
that
yeah,
alone.
yeah, like it would be like 2020, but like I don't think they'd really rig it. Like it wouldn't be like rigged. It would just be like, oh, sorry, yeah, he won, but he can't go in because of whatever. I mean, it'd be rigged, but like on a different, not voting.
So in a
rigged.
different way. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
you get what I'm saying. So yes
I'm
and no.
following. Okay. Well, so here's why I disagree, and I want to hear your take on this.
Yeah.
To me, by saying, "Oh, well, he's been put in jail, therefore don't vote for him," you're giving the Democrats what they want. The Democrats want to take this guy off the table, off the ballot, and say this guy is not acceptable to us. And by Republicans saying, "Well, can't vote for him," then we're giving the Democrats what you want. To your point about chess, the move you make in chess is not the winning move. It's the move your opponent least wants you to make.
Right, 100%.
And if they don't want you to nominate Trump and you nominate him anyway, you're making the move that your opponent least wants you to make. So that's A. And B, if Republicans do say, for example, okay, we're not nominating Trump, but we will nominate DeSantis or Pence or whoever, Ramaswamy, I don't care. What happens in 2028? What happens in 2032?
No, I agree with that.
And because here's the issue that I have with this is, would you have that same position in 2028 if they give DeSantis the Trump treatment? Let's say it's not Russia. Let's say it's Saudi Arabia. I don't know who it is. But there's some, you colluded with this country to get in.
Right.
So you didn't actually beat Biden, let's just say. Even though you won electorally, we still don't believe it. You're not legitimate. And then they steal the election from him in 2028. And or make it where he can't run again. I don't know. I'm just saying the question becomes, where does this... What does this movie look like when it ends?
Oh yeah.
And to me, if the Republican Party surrenders and says, and again, this is why I don't think it's a smart vote. I think the smart one is to, and again, vote for whatever issue you think is the highest issue.
Yeah, 100%.
But I don't think the candidate being put in jail and or being attacked like this is a disqualifier, because I view it as, don't do what the Democrats want you to do. So why would you differ?
Now, here's a question, though. Sure. What if the whole point is to get you to vote? So, like, again, back to chess, because sometimes it's to predict the moves of the opponent. Like, I'm going to move my piece here, so you're going to do what I think you're going to do anyway. Now, sometimes people do the exact opposite.
Sure.
So what if the point is here, and again, I don't know if this is the point, or anything, but what if the point is here, because as we've seen, and the Democrats know this, as we've seen, at least with polling, and I told you before we started recording and everything, that polling doesn't really mean much right now, at least until like we said, like the Iowa caucus completely kicks off and everything like that, for sure. But no, I mean, polling doesn't mean a lot right now, but as we've at least seen with each indictment, Trump's numbers have gone way high.
Sure. So
what if they do want you, because there's no way that the Democrats don't notice this, what if they do want you to vote for this guy? So they can make, some bogus law, whatever, to be like, now he's thrown in jail. Of course, he gets thrown in jail, his numbers are going to get thrown up, way sky high, You get what I'm saying? So what if?
Sort of, it almost, we're going to need to break this down
seems
a little
like
more.
A lot, right?
It seems like, okay, so they do want him to be the nominee, but they don't want him to be president.
They want the votes to go to him because of the fact that they have the most trash or garbage on him, you know?
Okay.
They have the most, like, legal stuff.
They think they have a shot at beating him legally
and everything, and just, like, pinning him down, you know?
Whereas if they had another candidate that was running, that would be harder.
DeSantis is clean.
Harder
Pence
to pin down legally.
Pence is cleanish as far as, like, yes, he still had documents, but that's about it. J6, he's already done his repenting for repenting. You know what I'm talking. Like,
no, when has he repented?
Not repented in the sense of he's done his repenting of, like, you know, he's been on CNN saying, "Hey, I wouldn't pardon the J6." You know,
he said right. Well, he's repented.
So that's what I'm
to
saying.
The left.
repented to the left.
Oh,
so, yeah,
okay.
not to the right. No.
Okay, I was confused.
Yeah. So you got.
I was like, when did I missed this interview?
Yeah. No, I know. Yeah, my bad. Misunderstanding there. Yeah, no. He's repented to the left. Yeah. So, you've got DeSantis, who's clean as far as, like, hasn't repented to the left or anything like that, but, like, there's nothing that we know of, at least right now, that, you know, the left really has on him.
I don't know, man. He is all about sending in another $20 billion to Ukraine.
But the left is totally fine with that.
Oh, no, I'm not disagreeing. I'm when you use the word clean, I guess I mean
I'm talking from the left,
right? And I keep conflating the two
because like the ones trying to
right.
beat the Republicans right now are the left, you know. So I'm talking from the
me.
left perspective
and
from the media perspective.
Right. No,
you know,
I'm following.
So the left, you know, and media perspective is like, you know, DeSantis clean, Mike Pence clean, Nikki Haley clean, Tim Scott clean, quote unquote, you know, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really have anything as much on them.
I mean,
you know what I'm saying?
Like,
versus this guy, it's like, hey, if he gets the vote, man, media just cover it, all this, et cetera, et cetera. You know, we'll start throwing in laws, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know.
But back to it. I mean, they may not have anything now, but they might in 4 years or in 8 years.
But the thing is, you don't have 4 years.
What do you do? In 4 years or in 8 years, do we just say the same thing? Well, the Democrats are doing what they did last time, and they're cracking down legally.
You watch what's happened. If you do end up getting the vote, like for example, let's say it's DeSantis, just because he's the second runner-up right now to Trump. So if it's DeSantis, you look at it right now and be like, okay, so this is what they wrongfully did. First off, he clearly pardoned Trump.
Well, who has said they would do so?
Oh, I'm not saying that. Nobody has said that because.
Vivek Ramaswamy.
Oh, really?
He has said.
Oh, he has said that. Okay, well,
no one else.
Vivek. Okay, so let's say it's Vivek. I agree with that.
Like, no chance of it happening.
It's not gonna happen. But anyway, I'm just saying. Yes, you do pardon Trump. Like, I mean, you just do. If you are the Republican candidate, so that's the first thing you do. If he got thrown into jail, you pardon Trump. You also figure out ways to take down any of the laws that had said, you know, hey, can't vote for a person that gets thrown in jail due to these reasons of like political whatever the heck. You take down all those laws. You fight against this stuff. So if you are that candidate, you have another agenda that you have to do now, which is figure out how to fight the system that was used against Trump. So
why can't that candidate be Trump?
I'm just saying because the system is going to be used against him. So the next guy is going to have to be used to fight for Trump.
You're presupposing that he has no shot, and I understand that perspective.
I'm not saying he doesn't have a shot. He has a shot.
You're saying he doesn't because the deep state won't let him.
Yeah, pretty much to an extent.
But you think the deep state would allow these other candidates to win?
Potentially.
Why?
Because they don't have as much on them thus far, at least for a year.
Shouldn't that concern you about these candidates?
I mean,
if the deep state doesn't fear them as much as they fear Trump?
They don't fear them as much because of the fact that they're only solely focused on Trump right now.
Okay.
They fear DeSantis.
They
do fear DeSantis, right?
Okay.
But the problem is they're solely too focused on this one thing.
And maybe this is where I guess I would go to say it's early enough where down the road that might change. If DeSantis starts looking like the presumptive nominee, I think that they will.
But it'll be too little, too late.
What do you mean?
Like by the time they get onto DeSantis, I think it'll be too little, too late.
I don't know.
Unless they get this Trump stuff really started.
Yeah, I don't know. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know what that would look like.
But I'm predicting that it'll be too little, too late for that type of stuff.
I don't know.
Personally,
that's difficult to say because in some people's minds, you're certainly right.
Yeah.
They would be like, well, why are you now attacking this guy. If this
and
guy,
you weren't before, et cetera, et
yeah,
cetera.
in some
I mean,
people's
shoot, Trump got
minds.
in. They were instantly being like, "Oh, this guy's
Well,
a joke," et cetera, et cetera.
well,
Then it got harder and harder and harder.
Once in
They haven't
2015
attacked DeSantis yet.
Yeah, well,
at
they
all.
started attacking Trump in 2015 when he.
Well, yeah,
announced,
exactly. That's the whole point. You know.
No,
So that's my thing. I think they've gotten so focused on the Trump thing that
Right.
they're kind of ignoring these other guys as like they're still a threat, but they're less of a threat to him. So they want to take out the big guy, and so
So shouldn't we try and nominate the guy that's the biggest threat to the deep state?
I'm not disagreeing with
Okay.
that 110%. I'm just saying I think it come back to backfire. You've also got to think of, okay, so if we do completely 100% back this guy, you know, and I'm not saying the guy's like, again, I do support him just because even if I don't vote for, like, for example, if I vote for Trump, you know, in 2024, doesn't mean I didn't like DeSantis, you know, or whatever, or vice versa. You know, it doesn't mean that, like, oh, yeah, I wouldn't have been okay with, you know, Trump being president or whatever. It just means that, you know, there's something else I like more or whatever, you know. In this case, thus far, you know, yeah, both guys I'm kind of cool with, you know, except for, you know, the Ukraine thing kind of is a little bit of an issue to me, but
for who? Which?
for DeSantis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But other than that, you know, it's like, yeah, just because I vote one way does not necessarily mean I don't, you know, I totally am against, you know, another guy. So I just, you got to think of your political opponent of what are they willing to do to screw over your vote, you know? So it's like, I don't know. And again, none of this, I don't have any like statistics to back this up. I'm just trying to think of things that, again, we saw 2020, something we'd never seen before. You know, we
have in other countries.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Banana Republic.
Exactly. We've never
Not
seen
in
that
this
before in
one.
the United States. You know, we've never seen. Yeah, sure, we've seen mail-in balloting and everything, but we've never seen it to the extent that we have, like you know, like this before COVID, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like, who's to say we're not going to see? We've never seen this before happen again. So it's me trying to think of how do we evade their tactic of the never before seen thing.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, again, I think
without being against Trump, it's not against Trump. It's
Right.
just
I
hey,
think-
they've kind of got you locked, and if we vote for you, it screws America in general.
I think the move they least would want America and or conservatives to make is to vote for Trump and then do things like implement changes where it can't be stolen, like at least regarding ballot
and I
boxes
agree with
and
that.
stuff like that. I think that's the move they least want to make. Now, what do you do regarding changing of the law? Like, meaning, like what you were saying,
Yeah.
we were talking about with Congress wanting to hold a vote about barring or banning a former president that's been impeached. What do you do there, especially if they have the amount of votes?
Yeah, no.
I don't know.
And I mean, that's
becomes
hard.
A real tough one.
I mean, that's hard.
And this is where if we had a Republican Party that had more of a backbone, we wouldn't have this problem. But you know, we wouldn't have a lot of problems if we had a Republican Party that had a backbone. But we must go now to the you mentioned DeSantis and Ukraine, and this isn't related to DeSantis, but there's some things going on with Ukraine, big ones, and one thing that was relatively recent was that there was an attack on Ukraine. An attack on Russia, where Russia said that there was an attack on a province that Moscow had annexed. Russian officials have said, this is from this is from Newsmax. I have one from Newsmax, the other from DailyMail.uk. Russia claims it thwarted Ukrainian attacks in provinces annexed by Moscow. Russian officials said their force thwarted large Ukrainian attacks in two provinces of Ukraine illegally annexed by Moscow. Ukraine did not confirm the attacks, making it unclear whether they marked the start of an unanticipated counteroffensive. Russia's defense ministry said in a very rare early morning video released a couple months. This is a little bit ago since our last episode, that its forces pushed back a large-scale assault at 5 points in southern Ukraine's Donetsk province, one of 4 regions that President Vladimir Putin claimed as Russian territory last fall, but is only partially controlled by Moscow. So you got that. Then you've got Kiev that comes out and says that didn't happen. That attack has not happened. And in fact, the name of the article has been renamed since then because there's a lot of things being updated, guys. They are saying that they have been building up their forces and they're making some gains, but they suggested that their announcements about a speculation of a counteroffensive is just misinformation from the Russians. In other words, we might be making ground, but we're not launching our counteroffensive. Now, this was a while ago.
Didn't they supposedly lose a ton of tanks and everything else, too?
Since then, they have launched a counteroffensive, and yes, they have lost a lot of armored vehicles. Mm-hmm. It's in the hundreds.
Given to them by the U.S.?
Yes, it's in the hundreds. These vehicles have been lost. Now, there have been some gains made, especially to southern Ukraine. Didn't know this until
but they're very minimal, aren't they?
I'm sorry, the gains?
Yeah, gains. Yeah.
There's not been a lot. Russia, but meanwhile, like when the counteroffensive was about to begin, before they made any gains at all, Russia owned, I didn't know this, Russia controlled 20% of Ukraine.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a pretty sizable chunk. I mean, that's that's not half. I mean, 50% could be worse.
Clearly.
It could be worse, but 20% is a big chunk, you know?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't realize it had gone to that much. I mean, I wasn't surprised, but I didn't know it was that big. So anyway, that was one thing. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was, as of the last episode you and I did together, and I would need to get updated numbers on this. The problem is NATO doesn't want to talk about it.
That's a fact.
Is we had sent, as of you and I last episode together, well, not the last one, but the one before, excuse me.
2 weeks ago.
Well, it was before that, because I did two that were by myself.
Oh, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, but so...
that was almost a month ago.
Yeah, so by that point, so
actually,
it's got to be way higher by now.
Yeah.
By that point, countries that are in NATO, so it wasn't just the U.S., had sent 1,550 vehicles and 230 tanks to Ukraine. By this point now,
that's way high.
We have sent more, and we have also started to send some planes, F-16s.
What are these numbers compared to like Iraq, Iran, and all that?
You know, you asked a good question. We're going to do some research on that,
really
because
I'm curious.
Because what's funny is technically the United States is not at war with Russia. And yet, when we committed all these troops, to your point, all this machinery,
I just want to know how
machinery in Iraq, we were at war.
Yeah,
so it's like
we were actually like there.
So how can you say one's war and the other one is like war casualties in terms of equipment?
Still our equipment and stuff.
Right. It's not our people, but it's our equipment. I mean, it is Biden's people. You know, when you think about all the ties he has to
agree with that.
Zelensky.
100%.
So you've got that, and when I read over 1,000, almost 2,000. It's probably close to 2,000 now. Vehicles. Now we got planes being sent. And this is the thing I think at number one is Biden said, we're not going to send deadly weaponry to Ukraine because that's going to start World War III.
Yeah.
Well, we're sending deadly weaponry to Ukraine now.
Yeah.
So are we starting World War III?
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds like a declaration to me.
And this is the same guy that said, read my lips, if we send tanks into Ukraine, that is World War III.
That's what he said.
Well, okay. Well, then I guess, according to our own president...
Well, as
World War III, right?
As a Muppet, he's very good at not moving his lips.
Yeah, that's a fact.
So, no, he's not. He can't even walk and chew gum at the same time. So, let alone do something like that.
Or
bike. Or walk upstairs.
Yeah, twice.
Yeah, twice.
Yeah.
That we know of.
Although he was, he was called the collapsed bridge by what's his name? Fetterman. Yeah, Fetterman. That was actually kind of funny. Like, look, I feel bad for Fetterman, but that was funny how just the mess up. I'm standing next to the president at the collapsed bridge. It's like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah. And
it's Biden, like, I agree, but I don't think that's what you meant. But
Biden's calm smile was the best part. He didn't say anything against it. He just kind of stood there and just smiled.
Oh man,
I hope Biden may not have realized anything was wrong.
It's like, you realize he just called you a collapsed bridge, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh man, that was great, but
it was.
But,
so he says this is World War III, and then proceeds to send this to Ukraine anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So you got, and when I watch this, I'm like, okay, look, broken clock right twice a day. Yeah, we're sending deadly weaponry to Ukraine. That spells World War III. I mean, we are going to have World War III if we don't stop it. Stop sending billions of dollars there. I mean, at a basic level for our listeners here, if I say to you, hey, man, I'm out to get Bob down the street, sell me a gun, and I don't have a gun, and you say, yeah, here you go, Josh, here you go. You're complicit in the crime. I've told you that I'm intending to use it against somebody, and so, Bob will be within his right to say, bro, what the heck? You just sold him a AR-15 and he blew my house away and tried to kill me.
I sold him the AR-15 because he said you'd support gay rights.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what happened. That's essentially what happened in Ukraine. We will give you this money if you make gay marriage legal in the middle of a freaking war.
Yeah, it's
The middle of
making the important things happen.
And I'm not we know I'm against that stuff, but but I'm for hey, people's rights and all that type of stuff. But in the middle of a freaking war, we're concerned about that stuff, really?
Oh, yeah, it's just a joke. It's a joke.
At the middle of a war, oh, we need to fix people's rights here. No, that can be held after
People stop dying.
Yeah, how about people stop dying and we can worry about the rights afterwards?
Yeah.
The right to life is the important one here right now.
Yeah. People not getting shot in the streets. Bombed in the streets.
We'll send you stuff as long as you make gay marriage and everything legal
it's
in Ukraine. It's like,
Trump,
who's getting married in Ukraine right now?
Trump, yeah, right, yeah.
Gay or straight? I mean, as far as I know, they're leaving the country to get
honey,
out.
Let's go have a honeymoon in Ukraine.
Yeah, in Kiev. Okay.
No.
Yeah, it's nobody,
no.
I'd like to see the marriage rates right now.
Yeah. Not high.
Gracious.
Not high.
It's yeah.
Not high.
I gave the...
And people give Trump grief for saying, oh, you threatened to not send arms to Ukraine if they wouldn't do what you said. This is what Biden did. He said, oh, we'll give you this if you make this.
Exactly. We'll give you the money if this. Okay. Same concept.
Yeah.
It's the same. And that's just called negotiation. Look, I'm not necessarily saying it's wrong in the sense of, that's just negotiation. Hey, I'll give you what you need as long as you do X, Y, and Z. That's part of, I'm not just going to give you my stuff just because, for the most part. There are certain circumstances here, you can have it. But you keep coming back, it's listen.
Right. Right. And that's to your point, that's what Ukraine is doing.
Yeah, it's
20 billion here, 20 billion here. It's just on. And this is the thing. At what point do we just say, we've sent them over $50 billion?
Yeah.
At what point do we say, this is just too much?
Yeah.
And not only that,
we
don't want a war with Russia, so we got to stay out of this. We just have to. We're broke.
We should stay out of it in general because, look, both countries, as far as, corruption and everything, they're both wrong. They're both, I don't want to fight for either bad guy. These are two bad guys going at each other. I'm not saying the people in Ukraine, but as far as, country-wise and everything, the deep states of those countries, both corrupt, right?
Sure.
Both bad guys. I don't want to fight for them. Now, as far as, the innocent people in Ukraine that have nothing to do with the corruption and everything else, yeah, sure. Help those guys out, as far as, getting them out or whatever, do something there. But as far as getting into a war, no way. I'm not getting into this war. No. It's not our war. It's not these, again, two corrupt countries. I'm not fighting for one bad guy over the other bad guy. Mm-hmm. This isn't the same case as World War I or World War II where there were clear bad guys, versus another not so bad guy versus an actual decent good guy for the most part. This just is not that scenario. So I don't know. I don't support war for this in general at all. Especially on anybody joining this war that isn't involved. This is Ukraine versus Russia. This isn't Ukraine versus Russia and China. Even though China's kind of joined this thing, but this shouldn't be Ukraine versus Russia and China, or Ukraine and France versus Russia. This would just be Ukraine versus Russia because this is all it is. Two corrupt countries there.
So,
in my opinion,
there's article we have about to back up what I said earlier about the U.S. sending F-16s to Russia. Wanted to get next into on the Russian side, if you had to guess what Putin's popularity is in Russia, what would you guess? High or low first?
Right now?
Yeah.
Probably decently high with all the propaganda that's probably...
Why would you think?
Propaganda. Also, now that Ukraine's fought back and stuff like that and has taken some ground to an extent and, even minimal gains,
Mm-hmm.
It's probably decently high.
Okay. Well, you're right. It's been pretty low, where it was about 50 or 60% was in 2020, which, depending on what Russia was doing about COVID, I could understand that.
Yeah.
But as of like just a couple weeks ago, whenever I was doing research on this for my show, it was fluctuating between 70 and 80%. Like high
That's
70s,
a lot higher than I thought.
high 70s, low 80s. Now then the question becomes: so there's two things here. Either A, you're right, and it's like, well, they're being taught that this is just not either. There's some people, and this is like, I don't know if that's true. Some people are saying that some people in Russia don't even know there's a war. They think that there's a police action going on in a neighboring country, but they don't.
Within itself.
Well, if that's true, if
Yeah,
that's actually being told to the Russians, I don't know if it is. But I think there's a possibility that they do know there's a war with Ukraine. But is there a possibility that they're supporting it anyway? Yeah, there could be. So I guess my point is maybe they're being lied to, or maybe they're not being lied to, and yet they still support the war in Ukraine. It could go either way.
I think it's a mixture probably of like
probably,
a lot of things.
Probably.
You know, there's some that don't even know there's a war going on, and then there's also, you know, because Putin a while back had a speech on like, you know, talking about the West and how the West has become an issue, et cetera, and like, you know, there's people also buying into that too.
Well, I mean, he did say
which
some
I'm not
things,
necessarily disagreeing with him.
Right. I mean, that's the issue. He did say a lot of things about the decline of Judeo-Christian values.
Well, he talked about the Russian Orthodox Church, which I've got a question. Because he's got some advisors that I've told you about that have some pretty crazy ideas. I forget the guy's. He comes up every time we talk about this topic, but he's got. Yeah. No. He's some like philosopher, or whatever, who's been a pretty big advisor to Putin on some of this stuff. And the way, like, this guy legitimately thinks that basically the Antichrist is the West, i.e., like, mainly the U.S. and everything, et cetera, et cetera. And like, so
I might know who you're talking about, but I don't know if he believes that.
He does.
I'd have to see the
like
receipts.
He's got a book. He's got a book on it as well, and I've like kind of glanced through like, you know, the notes of it and everything.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a lot to it.
Long hair and a beard.
Yeah.
Dugin.
Yeah, Dugin.
Alexander Dugin.
Yeah. Scary guy. Not a good guy.
Okay.
Not a good guy. Also, they talk about oh shoot, started with a T, not totalitarianism, but traditional.
Yeah.
You know, traditionalism. The problem is you know, there's traditionalism with a lowercase t, and traditionalism with an uppercase T. You know, which the uppercase T is more totalitarianism, where, you know, controlled by the country / you know, state in this case, and everything, which is not a good thing. You know, versus traditionalism, lowercase t, is like, you know, family culture, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I have a hard time believing a guy, in this case Putin, talking about, you know, the Orthodox Church, et cetera, and just talking about God in general, who's definitely committing war crimes. Again, even with Ukraine being, yes, a not so good guy, we know this. You know, I'm not advocating for Ukraine here. I'm not advocating for Russia, ever. They're both bad guys, you know, but the guy's committed war crimes. I find it very hard. Again, the guy bombed the hospital, you know. I find it very hard to believe that a guy that does these things can talk about, you know, Judeo-Christian values, legitimately.
He can. It's just a matter of
the legitimacy behind that, you know. How much of that is to actually just gain support from outside?
Well, or his own people.
Exactly. Right.
Let me ask you this. This when we gotta wrap up because we're over an hour.
Yeah.
Trump has talked about this. This kind of brings things almost back to Trump, but it's still really Ukraine. That he will have a deal in 24 hours.
Oh, yeah, in 24 hours.
What do you think of that? Do you think that... let's just say that specifically. Do you think he can make a deal in 24 hours?
He'll probably just say, look, you stop or we glass Moscow. I mean, does that end it in a day? I don't know. It's up to Putin at that point.
Well,
I don't know, but...
well, I mean, in that situation, it would end in a day.
Yeah, I mean, it really would. I mean, nobody's going to like that.
One way or the other.
But, I don't know if he could get it done in a day.
I don't know if that would work on Putin. I really don't know.
I don't know.
I feel like that he might be like, "Oh, you want to go?"
Yeah, I mean, no.
You know, I don't think he would say, "Well, we're very sorry." I don't
unless
know.
Trump's got the button right there. Look,
right there.
You make this deal, You're not at your
What
desk
was-
right now.
what was-
I'm at my desk. So you make this deal, and this
was-
button, Moscow go boom.
What was
You know?
yeah? What was his Truth Social where he said rob instead of run? He said rob.
Oh, yeah.
My red button is bigger than yours. It's like this is just gibberish. Like what does that even mean? My
Yeah.
button is bigger than
Yeah,
yours.
it's-
Imagine him saying that to Putin.
I could definitely see like I don't know like yeah I don't know that I definitely think
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not advocating for this at all. But the best ever cyber attack would be someone making an AI of his voice saying that,
Yeah.
and then Putin thinking it was real or something.
yeah, but like no I don't think Trump could get it done in a day. Like I think that's just his
I've
talk.
told people a week, maybe.
Yeah.
Like a
Do
week
I think
or,
he could get it
a
done?
week or a month? I would say. I think he could get it done.
He could get it done.
I would just say a week or a month.
He
probably.
could get it done. I think honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I think there's a lot of people, at least on the Republican side of things, that could get a deal done.
It's more likely.
Maybe a little longer than
it's
Trump, but
more likely on the Republican side than it's not, but than
Yeah.
on the Democrat side. But I still think he's the most likely.
Yeah.
The question is, like you just said, a day. I feel like that's a stretch.
Yeah.
I really do. I mean, number one, can you get both men on the phone at the same,
yeah,
on the same
100%.
day? But
Right.
secondly, so that's question A. Question B. Let's say so. This is kind of a. It's related, but it also kind of transcends Trump. What's the off ramp? Like, when will this war finally stop? I mean, what kind of a peace deal? Let's say it's Trump or anyone says, well, they just say we're doing a peace deal and we're doing one no matter what. What terms would even work? Like, I don't even know.
I don't know. I mean, because at this point, Ukraine's caused so much of an issue to Russia and vice versa, that I don't know.
There's so much loss.
Yeah, it's like you lose, like for Russia, from a Russian standpoint, like you negotiate a peace deal that allows Ukraine to go free here, or free, quote unquote, whatever you want to say, even though you started it, that allows Ukraine to go free. Like you lost almost to an extent.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, right. You could have had everything, and instead you didn't get everything.
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of how a lot of people would view it.
Then Ukraine, you negotiate a peace deal, and it's like we still lost because what the heck, like our country's in shambles now.
And it depends on the terms of the deal. What I'm saying, you're right.
I don't know. Either,
you're right.
I don't see a winner.
You're right. Well, I'm with you. I'm just saying if they keep like their original border, like their 2021,
but there's
border,
no way Russia would agree.
Exactly. See, that's
the problem.
This is where we're at, and I'm 100% with you. Like, there's a thing I was listening to one podcaster. Are you familiar with the prisoner puzzle?
I believe I've heard of it.
So
yeah.
basically, in essence, for our listeners, and this is a good refresher for you, I had heard of it, but I hadn't heard of it in a long time. The concept is you've got two mobsters, and they both get arrested, and they're each given a deal by the cops. The cops say, okay, if you rat on your buddy, then you serve 6 months in jail.
Yeah.
If you don't rat on your buddy, you serve a year in jail. But if you both rat on each other, then you get 2 years in jail. In other words, you serve the complete life sentence. But if you rat on your buddy and your other buddy basically takes the blame, then he serves 2 years, you serve 6 months, or you just go free. So basically, what always happens in these scenarios is when they make that, both prisoners say, well, I don't want to get screwed. So then they both confess, and then because then it comes down to if you both confess, you're both in jail for 2 years.
Yeah, exactly.
So the problem is in that scenario where you make that deal, it's actually a brilliant thing for the cops to do because they get both men to confess because they don't want the other one to be going off free and they get screwed. Mm-hmm. So here's to this point, both countries have an incentive to just drag this thing on to the last man.
Yep.
I mean, if Ukraine says, okay, Russia, you get to keep Luhansk and Donetsk, that's part of Ukraine. I mean, they never will get that part of Ukraine back, probably. I mean, how will they ever
unless
get
you
it
started
back?
another war.
Right. Well,
right.
and that's
Which
the other.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that in a second. But like that, they are not going to agree to that. The Ukrainian people are like, we've sacrificed so much. Russia is the aggressor. We will never settle for that. On the other hand, if you try to make a deal where you say, okay, Russia, withdraw and give these regions back to Ukraine, Russia's going to laugh at you and say no.
Now here's an idea, because the argument that Putin has had in the past, like before this war kind of started and during the start of this war as well, was, well, there was Russians in Ukraine that wanted to become part of Russia anyway.
Right.
Okay, forget up giving the land for a minute. How about you just take your people? We give you your people. Ukraine keeps the area. Russia's big enough as is.
So
So it's like, here, you take your people, and like that. Then how you end up doing the voting as far as like, do you want to become part of Ukraine or whatever? But like, yeah, somehow assist the the ones that want to become part of Russia or that want to be Russian still or whatever, not Ukrainian. You get what I'm saying?
No. So it feels like you're saying two things. So are you talking about having evacuations? Or are you talking about like parts
or like an exodus? Not really like evacuation. Yeah, like evacuation.
So are you talking about that, or are you talking about a region of Ukraine holding a vote and them voting?
I'm talking mainly about evacuation.
Okay. See, that's two. I was confusing.
Yeah. So it's like, here, you take your people.
I don't know. I feel like,
but not the country.
If a state or a country or part of a country, a municipality, votes, then if people theoretically believe in democracy, then that region should be allowed to become part of that country.
Okay, so if part of Greenville says, hey, we want to become part of North Carolina?
Well, number one, I would oppose that.
Well, yeah, clearly.
But and secondly, I would argue at that point, I would leave Greenville.
Yeah.
This is where I would say people should vote for their feet. So if you're a Ukrainian, like in other words, you identify as Ukrainian in the Luhansk or Donetsk region, and Luhansk and Donetsk vote to become part of Russia, then I would say either stay and become part of Russia or leave.
Yeah.
That's now as long as this is what I would say too. Luhansk and Donetsk, you have to allow freedom of movement for a time, for a year or whatever.
Right.
People have got to be allowed to leave and go to Ukraine now because they need to know what they're getting into.
Of course.
So I would say I believe in the right to voting in that way. I'm not a big advocate for democracy, but that's almost in a weird way.
You're not a big advocate for what?
Democracy.
Oh, okay.
That's almost. I'm more of a republics guy, as you know.
Oh, I got you.
Constitutional republics.
Yeah.
But back to it. So in a way, that's more like the best term for it would be almost like a referendum or like a secession. You would be voting to join another country. And I would argue that they should have the right to do that. Why should people be told in a municipality, if it's like 90% or 80% or even 65%, say we want to be part of Russia, and I've seen polling that's higher than that. It's pretty high. Why, as long as you allow freedom of movement where Ukrainians can leave, what the heck? I don't really care. Now it gets more complicated if they've got like a military base or something. That's different.
Yeah.
But I'm not hearing that there is that. I mean, maybe there is now, but it's a Russian one because they've captured that region. Of course. So anyway, that's my viewpoint on it. But back to it, I don't know what the off ramp is because here's the issue. Like I was listening to one guy talk about this. It was saying the only thing that would theoretically work is someone coming to the table, probably the American president, and saying, "You're not going to get everything you want, and you're not going to get everything you want." But at least we can stop this war.
Yeah.
At least the bloodshed will stop and the instability and all that.
I don't see either one of them agreeing.
So on the one hand,
maybe Ukraine.
On the one hand, I think that might be a little more likely. I don't know. It gets complicated. So that said, the problem with that is, okay, what's the likelihood of them saying, all right, and then in 10 years, war starts again? Because neither side is happy, in other words. So that's A. B, I was talking to a member of my family talking about this, and he said, well, Russia does not want this war to drag on and on because then this becomes Russia's Vietnam. The problem that I have with that is the Vietnam War was not unpopular overnight. It was after a long time of a lot of bloodshed where it finally was seen. And look, more Russians have died in Ukraine than Americans died in Vietnam. It's in the hundreds of thousands.
That's fine.
Whereas in Vietnam it was like 70,000, I think, tops. So yeah, right. That's far. It could get even higher. But here's the thing: like Nixon was elected because he ran on getting them out of the war. So in other words, we got out of the war because basically the American people voted for it. If you've got a Russian leader this is why I opened with saying this, that has a very high popularity rating, why would he be incentivized to withdraw? I don't really see that being the case. He doesn't have a political reason to withdraw. Yeah. So that being said, he doesn't really have a political reason to end the war until the Russian people say, we're tired of our older cousins and our older brothers and our dads getting shot up and shot to pieces in this war. End it. And until that happens, I think this could just go. I mean, I don't know. I mean, in history, it may go on another year, may go on another 2 years. I really don't know. And the problem, though, is that the American president is going to have to take a hit because, this is what this one guy said, is if that happens, there's going to be a percentage of the population that says, oh, Mr. President, you gave part of Ukraine to Russia, or like you cowered to the Russians, you kowtowed. That's and there will be some people that say, look, you brokered a peace, good for you, but it's going to be split. It's going to be party split. It's going to be hard to tell. So I don't think there's a simple solution.
No.
And I don't know what will happen. And I don't think Biden is even capable of that. I think that Biden speaks and Putin laughs.
Fetterman.
Yes, Fetterman can do it. Fetterman will do it, and that'll be how we have World War III. He's going to accidentally say, fire the nukes, and then everyone's going to be like, know what's going to happen next. No, that would be a disaster. It'd be funny. I mean,
it wouldn't be funny. No, it would not. No, it would not.
I had a bit of satire where whenever an American politician goes to Russia, Putin always asks his secretary, does this one know what gender it is? I mean, I don't think we're there yet, but we will be. Like, all the other countries are going to be like, does this one know what it is? Okay, I'm just making sure.
Yeah, pretty.
Because, I mean, he looks like a dude, but I don't want to say that if he doesn't know what he is.
Yeah, I mean.
So, we're the laughing stock, man. Welcome to the Democrat Party.
Yeah, pretty much.
Controlled part of America.
Pretty much, man.
Well, man, if you want to wrap up with anything about Ukraine or anything else you want to say, if not, we'll do social media plugs and get out of here.
Yeah, you want to do questions?
Yeah, please. Yeah. I keep forgetting. So, questions to close. This is what we're going to be closing the show with. Yeah. Questions to close.
Also, before we do questions to close, we seriously need a board back here on like times Democrats agree with Democrats. Let us know
what you want us to write down. We are going to do that, but also if you want other stuff, other suggestions for the channel, guys, let us know. We want feedback.
Because for the one of the questions.
Cool. I see where this is going.
It does involve Biden and him kind of being right now. How much? Yeah, right. Yeah. The question is do you think we're winning the war or battle, whatever you want to call it, on the LGBT squad, as far as, and including mainly the trans stuff and because let me give you a couple reasonings why.
Sure.
As we've progressed through, the Bud Light issue, Bud Light doubled down, right? We see Bud Light and their stocks have dropped tremendously. What's the number one selling?
Sound like tremendous.
Yeah. Well, what's the number one selling beer in the U.S.? Modelo.
That's right.
Is now the number one selling beer in the U.S. And that's because I believe is strongly because Bud Light sucks in general. It's never been good. I've never liked Bud Light.
I'm with you.
This
happened, and I was like, you know what? I don't care.
Didn't like them in the first place, but definitely not going to buy it if I need a case of beer.
I was never going to drink it anyway, so I'm definitely never going to drink it.
Bud Light was never good. Their stocks were dropping, but their stocks have plummeted. And have continued to.
It was a controlled descent to an uncontrolled descent.
Exactly. They have continued. Yeah. Disney, they've had issues within themselves. However, they've kind of come back, but that's Disney. Then we see places like, for example, Starbucks, right? Who used to be like the LGBTs of the LGBTs. We see.
Yeah, what did they do?
Starbucks. Yeah. What ended up happening with Starbucks is there was this thing about apparently there were not customers, there were employees being asked to, hey, take down the pride decorations and everything. And then Starbucks was like, no, this isn't happening. But then you've got literal Starbucks employees being like, look, I'm videoing me taking these down because I was told to take these down, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So it's like, so it's a question. Is that actually going, is that actually going on? Because clearly it is actually going on. But then we see companies like, Pride Month has only lasted for the most part for a day. Yeah. You still see the parades and everything, but I'm talking like corporate wise. It's only it's like, as soon as like June 1st hit, it's like, rainbow, logo. Then all of a sudden June 2nd, what the heck? It's back to the normal logo, which I'm cool with. Don't get me wrong. So the question is Pride losing, is Pride Month losing its hold, and are the values kind of starting to get back in? Because then the last point I've got is where, Biden's correct. Now, Candace Owens is like, well, it's only because he got so much pressure, but that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
Biden said, because they had like that where they invited the LGBT and the Pride people to the White House and everything.
The whole hanging up of the flag.
Yeah. And we saw some exposure of chests and everything, just very indecent exposure from I guess males and females.
It was a dude.
Yeah, but okay. But either way, I don't need people seeing that in general.
We don't. I'm with you.
And Biden, came out and said, "Hey, these guys are no longer welcome. That was not appropriate." And yeah, they've been banned from at least, I guess, White House grounds. I guess so. It's like, I've got to agree with Biden on that. Like, yeah, he's right. That was inappropriate. That's not acceptable. And it does not. I think he said something of like that doesn't represent the White House, et cetera, et cetera. He's not wrong, So it's like, sadly, I've got to say I agree with Biden on this one. Now, again, what was the reasoning behind that of like, oh, it's just because he got pressure behind, okay, and like he still did it. If we're winning war, if we're winning battles because of pressure and everything, oh well, Target, same thing, So stocks, I've got a feeling after summer, stocks are going to plummet for Target. Like, I really do.
I hope they go bankrupt.
Yeah, well, I don't think they will. But it's one of those go broke, go woke, go broke for sure. Yeah, one can hope, but I still don't think they do just because, Target just, they still have, people that don't care as far, like, yeah, it's still a popular place.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I mean.
They've painted a target on their back.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, that's kind of the question. What's going on? Are we winning the war there? Are we winning the LGBT thing or correcting the LGBT? Like, what's going on, in your opinion?
I think what you said is a pretty good way of putting it. We've won a couple of battles.
Yeah.
Are we, by that metric, are we winning the war? That's a tough one.
Yeah.
I think we only will if we keep our memories and say, this is how these people are in the past, this is what they are capable of.
Yeah.
And if we ever allow them to have free reign and control over
kind of like
country,
a 9/11 type thing of never forget.
Yeah.
But not on that level, of course. I'm not comparing this to 9/11, just heads up. But you can't forget this stuff because if you do, things repeat.
I mean, exactly. And so
same with the Holocaust, stuff like that.
I would say the situation with these people is, I mean, the transing of the kids is only going to stop when people do things like what was signed in Alabama and what was signed in Florida and what Trump is talking about doing nationally if he's elected, and other people have talked about it too at some level. So I think, but it's, if we're winning the war, it's like, 51% us, 49 points.
Oh yeah,
I'm worried about getting too optimistic because of people just forget. Like, to your point, people still go to Target.
Oh yeah.
Even people that are probably not on the left still go to Target because they're either apathetic, they don't know what's going on, or they do and they don't care enough.
Or the whole like, oh well, my one thing isn't gonna,
Yeah, there's that too. Exactly.
My one vote doesn't matter. That's a bit of a
tough one. Regarding Biden, I actually would, there's the whole broken clock right twice a day thing.
Yeah.
Biden saying, "Oh, this does not represent my administration." Bull crap. You've celebrated this for a very, very long time. Now, I'm glad.
The point is, he came out and said it.
No, and I was getting ready to say, I'm glad that he said that. But at the same time, it's kind of like saying, for the longest time, yay, this represents us. And then when it's politically unpopular, saying it doesn't.
Yeah.
And you're right.
You agree with Candace Owens on what she said on it,
for the most part. I see your point of, well, he kind of was pressured into doing it.
Yeah.
And I get that. Excuse me. So, I don't know. It's got to go a step further though. And it's never going to be under his administration. I mean, it's the most deranged and disgraceful administration in history. I mean, Woodrow Wilson and FDR knew what a woman was. Yeah. They didn't appoint people to the Supreme Court that were like, we don't know what
every
we are.
president up till now knew what a woman was.
Yeah, and now it's this one. So it's just bizarre. So anyway, I think that some steps are being made, some strides are being made. So overall, I would say yes, but we've got to keep pushing, which I know you would agree with. We got
Yeah.
we got to push while the momentum is here. So,
Yeah.
to point the question back to you, would you basically agree? Would you say that we're winning the war?
Yeah, no, I mean, so what a one war looks like to me personally is, you know, until there's legislation personally of like, you know, hey, you can't trans children.
Mm-hmm.
Like, again, I say 21, but, you know, realistically, I guess 18, just because of that, you know, you're an adult at 18. You know, again, I say 21 just because of, you know, the development of the brain. Personally, you want to really get technical with it, your brain doesn't technically fully develop for the most part until you're 25.
95.
Yeah, 95, right. No, but until you're 25, your brain isn't technically fully developed in most cases
How
until
old is Fetterman?
yeah, until 25. So it's like, you know, you could push it all the way to 25 for me, but all right, let's say 21 or 18, I guess. That's where it's like I would say, yeah, we're definitely winning this war. I'd say we're definitely winning some battles, like you said. So right now it's like probably, like you said, 51 us, 49 them. But then you've got things like these protests, like, you know, you had Dodger Stadium giving awards out to these Sisters of Perpetual. It was some. It was just a straight mockery.
I don't know.
It was another LGBT thing. Yeah, look into it. I
Okay.
forget what it is, but Sisters of something, Perpetual something. I forget.
I kind of don't
Forget the
want to now.
no, it's terrible. But no,
Oh, wait, was it the rapper?
no, it wasn't a rapper.
There
It
was
like
a really
group.
bad rap song.
No,
too.
no, it was
Okay.
it was a group. It was a group or whatever, and everything. And it
kind of
was,
want to look into it. I kind of
it's
don't.
an LGBT
Yeah,
thing, and it's
yeah,
a straight it's a direct mockery of God,
Of course.
because again, sisters of, you know, again, it's and their names are like, you know, they're like sister this, sister that, like it's a mockery of like the Catholic
Okay.
Church.
Okay.
And again, agree or disagree with the Catholic Church, it's still
I gotcha.
mocking God, you
Sure.
know,
Oh, of course.
or anything religious in the sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Dodger Stadium thought it was a good idea for Pride Month to give these guys an award. Well, Christians and other people in general that disagreed with this stuff went outside of Dodger Stadium and protested, you know, like crazy. So that's a battle won. And like Dodger Stadium for the most part was pretty empty that day as well. Then you've got, you know, these schools where we've got, you know, Muslims and Christians alike out here saying, hey, don't touch our kids.
I was going to mention
when
that,
you've got Muslims and Christians who, you know, couldn't be further from each other, you know, again, whatever side you agree on or not, who couldn't be further on each other of belief except for the fact that they believe in a God. That's about it, you know. But yeah, I mean, when you've got both these guys saying, hey, yeah, don't touch our kids, I mean, you got to say there's something going on here.
The entertaining thing about that was then the left was like, that's transphobic, and they were like, it's against our religious beliefs, and they said, no, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you're telling Muslims this isn't against your religious beliefs.
These are the guys that literally throw them off of rooftops, but you know, hey.
Do you not understand that you're telling a Muslim what they believe?
Right,
like,
exactly.
It's just bizarre. It'd be like an atheist coming to you
and saying, no, it's
this
not
is
against.
what
Although
Christians...
then again, people all the time will come up to Christians and say it's not against the
but
Bible.
Typically
Yes, no, clearly is.
Those people claim to be Christians. The difference is it'd be like an atheist saying,
yeah, this is true too. Yeah,
this is what Christian beliefs are. It's like, you're an atheist.
Thou shalt not lie is not in the Bible.
You're an atheist. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
That would be, it's equivalent to that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's equivalent to, there's no surah against this. And
Yeah.
these people are literally Muslims saying, yes, there is.
Yeah.
So like, it's, I think, number one, hilarious to see the left at itself, because the left is all about Islam except when it's against transgenderism.
Exactly.
And it's entertaining.
So now you're kind of shooting a base.
It's entertaining as heck to see. You know who we have not heard from is Rashid Tlaib or Ilhan Omar.
Right.
Haven't heard us.
Yeah, where's she at?
Yeah. Well, she might be with her brother.
Well, this is true.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
That was bad.
Yeah, right.
Oh, dang.
But no, I mean, these are
Honeymoon
definitely, these are big battles won. You know, like, or big battles winning, not necessarily won 100%.
Yeah,
Again, I don't think we've won the war, but I think advantage us for right now.
For now. Yeah.
And like you said, as long as we don't forget this stuff, the advantage, I think, is going to continue to be pushed.
It's ours to lose.
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
ours to lose.
Yeah,
so we got to keep up on this
I'm
stuff,
with you.
especially
I'm
for the
with you.
especially the kids area of thing. If
I'm
companies
with you.
want to go woke, fine, go broke. I don't got to
with
buy
you.
from you. But as far as kids and stuff like that goes, you can't lose on that war.
Sure.
You know, that's a big thing. So like, you know, Bud Light you know, whatever, fine, do what you want. You're a company, you can do what you want as far as like, yeah, you know, put some dude that thinks he's a chick who's deranged on your social media, on your can.
Well,
fine.
He's probably on both.
Yeah, probably, yeah. Fine, go do that. I just won't buy from you. Whatever, that's cool. Turn your logo blue. Blue. Turn your logo rainbow.
Blue, red. Oh, yeah.
Every
red,
color of the
green.
rainbow, except for one. You know, God's rainbow has 7. Ironically, the LGBT rainbow has 6. God's perfect number 7. Satan's number 6. You know, hey, but anyway, that's beside the point.
I haven't thought of it that way.
Yeah, but anyway, that's beside the point. Also, Pride Month in the middle of that. If you put the two together, there's demon.
I know,
But
I
anyway,
saw that.
I'm not gonna go there. But yeah, that's kind of weird how that works, right?
Yeah,
you know,
I've seen
Satan
that.
can only do what? Imitate. He cannot be God. He can only imitate.
Alright.
But anyway, beside the point. Yeah, no, I do think that we are winning battles. We haven't won the war, so I would agree with you on that. And yeah, I'd say that yeah, things have kind of, at least on that front, have flipped towards, you know, us.
We have to move on. Is there another question, or was the other question related to Biden?
The other question, it really was just related to Biden. So.
Okay, well, we answered it then.
Yeah,
right?
pretty much,
So,
yeah. Mm.
Neat. Well, we need to wrap up there. It's been an hour and a half, so thank you very much, guys, for tuning into this episode of Zoo Nation. My name is Josh.
I'm Nathan.
And everybody, have a great evening.